This is Mrs. Wayner's math class, Chapter 10, Lessons 10.1, 10.2, and 10.3, Part 5, Customary Length, Capacity, and Weight Comparisons. Before we begin, did you hear the news? King Henry drinks unusually dark chocolate milk, many large gulps. Remember that. Now on with today's learning target. By the end of today's lesson, you should confidently be able to say, I can compare customary units of measurement. Example number 1 says, is 10,000 feet greater than, less than, or equal to 2 miles? So what is this question asking us to do? It's asking us to compare 10,000 feet and decide whether it's greater than, less than, or equal to, we'll put a comparison circle, 2 miles. The only problem here when I want to do this conversion is I can't just compare 10,000 to 2 because my units are different. I have 10,000 feet and 2 miles. A foot is 12 inches. That's like the size of a ruler. But a mile is walking from the middle school to Stokes, back to the middle school, back to Stokes, and back to the middle school. So a mile is much, much, much longer than a foot. Therefore, I cannot compare the numbers this way. I need to change the units to the same units. If I make a conversion and make both of the units the same, then I can simply look at the numbers and compare. Let's see how this is done. And here's our note for this lesson. To compare customary units of measurement, always convert the larger unit to the smaller unit so you can multiply rather than divide. If you can choose which way to go, you're better off to do large to small because multiplication will be faster and easier than the division. So if 10,000 feet compares to 2 miles, and I'm going to notice that feet is my smaller unit and miles is my larger unit. And again, if I can change this in any way I want, it's better for me to change it large to small because then I will be able to multiply. So I am going to do that conversion. I'm going to take my larger unit, which is my 2 miles, and I'll count that as the unit I know, so I'll put it first, and I'm going to see how many feet the 2 miles equals to, and that will be my unknown. So I can cross out my 2 miles because I will be changing that to feet. I'll write the new answer with the feet on top. Okay, so we'll take a look at miles to feet, which is large to small. We did that purposely. Large to small means we multiply. Take the number we're given, which is the 2. The operation, which is times. We're going to go take a look at our chart to find miles to feet, and here we are right there. It's 5,280 feet per mile. 5,280. I'm going to go ahead and move to the side for my scrap paper. 5,280. Always put the number with the most digits on top. It's the fastest way to go. Times 2. So let's multiply. 2 times 0 is 0. 2 times 8 is 16, put down the 6, carry the 1. 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5, and 2 times 5 is 10. So I will write that on my line, 10,560 feet. So my 2 miles is 10,560 feet. I'm going to put that information right here on top. It's 10,560 feet for the 2 miles. Okay, now it's pretty easy to compare. I have 10,000 feet. Is that greater than, less than, or equal to 10,560 feet? Well, my tens are the same, but when I get to that hundreds column, I have a 0 and a 5. 0 is going to be less than 5, so 10,000 is less than 10,560. So when I go back to my original question, it says, is 10,000 feet greater than, less than, or equal to 2 miles? I'll write my final sentence. 10,000 feet is less than 2 miles, and that's my final answer. Please stop the video and complete worksheet number 1 right now. Let's take a look at example 2. Decimal Dan has 16 gallons of fruit punch for his dance party. Beautiful Betty has 64 quarts of fruit punch for her dance party. Who'll have more fruit punch at their dance party? Uh-oh, sounds like they're fighting again. Well, let's figure out the problem. What is it asking us? Who will have more fruit punch at their dance party? What do we know? We know that Dan has 16 gallons of fruit punch, and we know that Betty has 64 quarts of fruit punch. So I need to compare is 16 gallons greater than, less than, or equal to, so I'll put my comparison circle, 64 quarts. So let's write that on the next page so we have plenty of room to solve our problem. So I'm looking at my 16 gallons compares to 64 quarts. I'm going to focus in my units. I have gallons and quarts, and I notice that gallons are larger than quarts. I want to put my numbers in order from large to small, so that's the way I'll make my conversion. Put a line underneath to separate my original problem, and I will say 16 gallons equals how many quarts. I'll cross out my gallons. I'll change it to quarts. I'll go ahead and figure out how many quarts it is so that I can compare. So in my comparison, 16 gallons equals how many quarts? I know that gallons are larger than quarts, which is large to small, which is what I purposely did so that I could multiply. My number is 16. My operation is multiplication, and I'm going to go ahead and look at my gallon guide chart to see how many quarts are in a gallon. I see my big G, and here are my quarts. I see 1, 2, 3, 4 quarts are in a gallon. So it's going to be 16 times 4. I don't know my 16 times tables by heart, so I'm going to use some scrap paper. 4 times 6 is 24. 4 carry the 2. 4 times 1 is 4 plus 2 is 6. So 16 gallons is going to equal 64 quarts. And again, I crossed out my 16 gallons up here so that I could write in 64 quarts. Now I have to compare. 64 quarts is greater than, less than, or equal to 64 quarts. Oh wow, it's equal to. This was a word problem, so I go back to my original question. Who will have more fruit punch at their dance party? So the answer is Decimal Dan and Beautiful Betty will have the same amount of fruit punch at their dance parties. And that's the final answer. Please stop the video and complete worksheet number 2 right now. So let's move on to example 3. Example 3 says, Mrs. Wainwright received 43 ounces of chocolate on Valentine's Day. Yum. Mrs. Castellano received 3 pounds of chocolate on Valentine's Day. Which teacher received the most chocolate? Oh, I hope it's going to be me. Well, let's see how to solve this problem. So go ahead and look at my question, which says, this is what I want to find out. Which teacher received the most chocolate? And let's see what I know. I know that Mrs. Wainwright, that's me, has 43 ounces of chocolate. And I know that Mrs. Castellano has 3 pounds of chocolate. I want to know who received the most, so I'm going to do a comparison. I'm going to say 43 ounces, is that greater than, less than, or equal to 3 pounds? So again, I'm going to rewrite my problem on the next page so I have plenty of room to work. So you can see I've rewritten 43 ounces with a comparison circle in 3 pounds. I put a W by the 43 ounces because that's how much chocolate Mrs. Wainwright has. I put C by the 3 pounds, that's how much chocolate Mrs. Castellano has. Since I need to find out who got more, I want to really remember who got which amount as I'm solving this problem. Okay, so I do want to do a conversion here, and again, if I convert my larger unit to my smaller unit, I can multiply, so that's what I'm going to do for this problem. I'll put a line underneath it and get myself set up for my conversion. Okay, I look at my units, and I see that ounces is smaller than pounds. Pounds is larger, so I'm going to go large to small for my conversion. Therefore, I'm going to say 3 pounds equals how many ounces. Once I find that out, I'll write how many ounces instead of the 3 pounds. Okay, so let's go ahead and solve this as we always do. Pounds to ounces is large to small. Large to small means I multiply. Take the number they gave me, which is the 3, my operation, which is multiplication, and I need my conversion of pounds to ounces. And here I see it right over there, 1 pound equals 16 ounces, so I'll write down my 16. Again, I don't know my 16 times tables by heart, so I'll write it down over here, 16 times 3. When I work it out, I see that the answer is 48. So I'm going to move that right up into my answer column, and 3 pounds equals 48 ounces. So I'll write up here, I cross out the 3 pounds and change it to 48 ounces. Now I can compare. 43 ounces, is that greater than, less than, or equal to 48 ounces? That is less than. So Mrs. Wainwright got less chocolate than Mrs. Castellano. Ugh. Okay, let's go back to our original problem and read the question. And the question says, which teacher received the most chocolate? So sadly, the answer is Mrs. Castellano received the most chocolate. And that's the final answer. But the second part to that answer is, and Mrs. Wainwright was so very jealous. Please stop the video and complete worksheet number 3 right now. So let's review. When you're given a problem and you need to find out who has the most, who has the least, or who has greater, or who has less, you take the two amounts that you're given, put a comparison circle to compare. When the units are different, as they are here, ounces, pounds, or whatever the units are, if they're different, you find out which is the largest and which is the smallest and label them. If you like multiplication better than division, and I do, you take the largest unit and write it down with an equal sign, a blank, and the smaller unit after that. So you're going to transfer your larger unit into your smaller unit. Cross out the unit that you brought down, which is the larger unit, and now go ahead and do your conversion. So I'll say large to small equals multiply. Bring down what you know, which is the 3 times, which is the operation. Find your conversion. When I look up at the chart, I see that 16 ounces are in 1 pound. Do the problem to figure it out. And when you get your answer and find out what the conversion is, you can write that new answer on top of what you crossed out by the comparison sign. Now that your units are the same, ounces to ounces, it's a very quick and easy comparison. And in this case, I can see that 43 ounces is less than 48 ounces. Hopefully by now you can confidently say, I can compare customary units of measurement. As always, we'll be doing practice in class. If you have any questions or concerns, see a teacher. Good luck with this lesson.